Welcome back, everybody. It is me. It is the Cyber Warrior. This is Cyber Warrior Studios, and y'all know what it is. It's all about security happy hour. It is Friday. It is Freya's Day. Grab a drink, enjoy yourself, and let's get this show rolling because we got an amazing show planned. It is the end of the year. It is December 1st, final month. We're going out with a bang this year, and we're going to make it happen. So every week, I'm going to be trying to bring on new people, old people, people that have been around, and newcomers. So if you know someone that wants to come on, please let me know, let them know to get a hold of me, because that's what we're going to do is we're going to bring on as many people as we can. Now, saying that, hang out for about 10 seconds, and I'll be right back. Told you I'd be right back. And with me this evening, I have the one and only Matt Marks, otherwise known as Griffin InfoSec, and actually Griffin, I can't think of the 3D printing company you have now, but Griffin Works, I think, is what it is.
Yeah, that's the one.
So we got a lot of things to talk about today. Not going to lie, because cloud security is extremely important. But before we get into it, Space Tacos, thank you for joining us. David Fraley, finally back in the chat. Good to have you here again this evening. Jack, Misha, and Anonymous. I can't remember who Anonymous is. They're always coming in with some cloud stuff. They're hilarious. But good to have everybody here. And we're going to get on with the show. So what have you been up to, Matt? Like, seriously, because it's been almost a year now since you've been on.
Yeah. Yeah, building a lot of stuff. Architecting, engineering, deploying tools, doing a lot of proof of concepts. And actually, now we're getting more into the purple teaming and so trying to actually test things out and make sure shit works like it's supposed to. So,
hey, we actually have to QA shit before we put it into production.
Before, after, sometime, somewhere in there.
Straight to prod. We update in prod. That's what we do.
Yeah, we test in prod. It's all right. It'll be all right.
Full send. But no, cloud's crazy because I know you've been a big cloud guy ever since me and you started talking. And you know my take on it, right? Like, as much as we're going to it and you need to know it, I despise it, right? So it's one of those things that I reluctantly learn. And I am very reluctant to be like, oh, yeah. Like, these days, I'm like, oh, yeah, go to cloud. This is what we're going to do. But in the back of my head, I'm always going to be like, it's somebody else's computer. Like, use your own shit.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? It's I jumped into it about 6-7 years ago, and started out actually as a sysadmin, just building a network and building it all, migrating into the cloud, or at least somewhat, right? Because small businesses, it is actually more expensive depending on how you do it. So it can be a good DR scenario for them. So it really depends on what you're looking for, and now I know a lot more, so now I can actually make better recommendations for them. But
it is one of those things. Like the cloud is a weird beast because AWS, Azure, I've not messed too much with GCP, but I know them too for sure. They have kind of like your free tiers.
Yep.
Which, okay, as a personal user that wants to play around in the cloud and shut your shit down every day, great. As an enterprise, you will blow that shit out of the water within the first month. Your free tier is non-existent for an enterprise.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it really is only, that free tier is only for their small, or almost, their smallest instances, right? The T2 micros and whatnot. So yeah, you really can only deploy something tiny, use it for testing. There are some cases where it can be extremely affordable if you're able to do things like serverless or some of the containerization. But again, if you're trying to spin up some massive database server or anything like that, or try to use RDS, oh my god, RDS blew the bill up like no other, right? So if you don't know how to scale these things and you don't know how to migrate them properly, it's a nightmare, right? So there is a lot to learn. It is a huge learning curve.
Yeah, definitely. Just for reference, if you're on LinkedIn and you are not following Cyber Warrior Studios, I do not see your name. It is coming in as LinkedIn user. So for whoever said howdy, Howdy. Please make sure you're following Cyber Warrior Studios so your name actually comes through on the chat. Yeah, I mean, so walk me through this, because I think this is the biggest contention that we have right now in enterprise, small business, medium business, any of them, and it's the shared security model. So a lot of people get into cloud and they're like, oh, it's secure, right? Just enable the ACLs and we're good to go. But in reality, what really is the shared security model to these people, and why is it important for newcomers trying to break in that they understand where that delineation is?
Yeah, exactly. And this is definitely the fundamentals that you can learn for free, and we'll talk about that, I guess, later. But yeah, the shared security model is very important because, as I was saying before, if you are building a VM or EC2 instance, and you're building that infrastructure and trying to do what they call a lift and shift, and just trying to, you know, take a server and just rebuild it in the cloud, not only are your costs going to be high, but also you are more responsible, right? You are responsible for that VM, the security of the VM. It gives you more control, and you can put, you know, your traditional, carbon blacks and all that stuff on there. But at the same time, you are responsible for all the security, your network security, all that kind of stuff. You know, they do offer limited DDoS protection and whatnot, but of course, the more you want, the more it's going to cost. Advanced, Shield Advanced, and all that good stuff. You know, you're looking at thousands of dollars a month, which is still comparative to Cloudflare. So it's not like it's something you wouldn't pay for anywhere else. But yeah, and then as you move up the stack, right, you go to serverless, you go to, you know, these SaaS things, right? You use websites all the time that are basically SaaS offering to you, right? You don't have to manage anything. You just log in and use it. So you really do have to understand where your responsibility lies in there and what controls you can put in place on those as you move up from infrastructure to your serverless to your completely SaaS offering, right? Where you don't really control much of any of it.
Yeah. And I think for me, when I look at it, and I do have a question here from Misha, which is a very good question, so we'll get to that in a second. And Christine, I guess you were the one that was on LinkedIn. Howdy again, now that you're on YouTube. YouTube is the best place to watch this show. Multiple reasons. One, I get to interact with all of you. Two, there's super chats, so if you want to help fund the show, you can do that. And three, there's tips after the fact, so if you watch this on replay, you can always still tip the show. Plus, the description is always there. So the ways you can follow, find Matt and myself and things of that nature will always be there. But I want to talk about, the security behind it, because, you talk about doing a lift and shift and bringing like an Active Directory server or something like that, some of those server into the cloud. Um, when I think of the shared security model, all that the cloud is providing you is the hardware and the security behind that hardware, meaning they are technically supposed to secure the underlying architecture that provides those VMs. So
Right.
your host operating system, think of it in terms of virtual machines. If you have a VM,
Exactly.
they are responsible for securing the host. You're responsible for securing that VM. And
Right.
then they provide the physical security and the power bill and all that other stuff for the data centers. So that's how I look at those, and look at the shared security model, because everything after that, once that VM is stood up, everything after that is on you. You put in the ACL,
Yeah.
you put in the firewalls, you put in, these ports are up, these ports are down, whatever the case may be, who has in and out access, all those things. So it's still you securing everything minus the physical infrastructure.
Hardware. Right. Yeah.
You're securing everything. So I think people get confused on that shared security model where they're like, oh, Microsoft has to take up some of the no. Microsoft,
No.
like their security is very limited, but they do give you all the tools to secure your shit. You just have to know how to do it. And so I think that's where people get confused. They think they could just stand something up and it's good. But
Right.
9 times out of 10, when you stand something up, especially when the cloud was brand new, Azure, AWS, GCP, that shit was
Oh yeah.
wide open to the world. By
Yeah.
default, wide open. And it's how so many S3 buckets that had data in it just got
Yep.
leaked because, I got an S3 bucket with, which is basically a external storage,
Yep.
with all this data in it that we're using for backup. No one thought to say, hey, deny all.
By default. By default. Yeah.
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 But I
And
want to
keep
get
it
to
that way.
Misha's question here. And it's a very good one. What is the best way to explain the cloud and its security to those who are new to the concept of utilizing cloud. I think I covered some of that, but what's your take?
We'll cover that a little bit differently. So I would say the best way to describe it beyond what you've already described is, like you said, it's like VMs, but I think the reason why so many are going to it because it's developer friendly. It's so easy to build a server and get your web app up, whatever you're trying to build, right? Your website, whatever. It's so easy to build these things, to build your servers and get things up and provisioned fast, right? In the past, you had to, rack and stack servers and all this wonderful stuff, and that took weeks or months depending on what you were trying to do. So, as far as explaining it and its security, actually, I have a talk coming up next week talking about some of that. But basically, it's with the cloud, it's more about configurations. It's more about you have, like I said, if you have built the infrastructure like the VMs and whatnot, we're not talking about serverless or the SaaS offerings. But if you're building a VM, like I said, you still have to be in charge. You still have to control that network traffic. You still have to control your box itself, right? Put your antivirus and EDR, all that fun stuff on there. You still should have firewalls in place, right? Not just relying on the cloud native firewalls because they're very simple. So that's where you really need to pay closer attention to is what is the difference, right? If you know traditional, what is the difference between cloud? And that's where a lot of people don't get or get caught up is they don't think, there's firewalls. Well, not kind of.
Yeah.
There's firewalls, but it's very simple firewalls, right?
It's the old school firewall. It's the port allows and denies. It's not an NGFW or anything like that. Whereas
exactly,
you can actually go through Azure and I believe AWS also. They have, and you have to pay for the license for it, but you can put Barracudas in place. You can put actual next generation firewalls, Palos, Fortinets, things like that in play in the cloud. So it's like you're taking that iOS image, which is Cisco. So I don't know what the Fortinet and Palo call their images, but you take their software and you secure your cloud with it. So people just don't realize that, and they're like, "Oh, I'm good."
Right?
Are you?
Yeah. Right. Exactly. They move and they think exactly like you said before. They move it to the cloud and they're like, "Oh, we're secure." No. You can't rely on AWS or Azure or GCP to protect your instances or to protect your network traffic. Right. They're only going to block stuff that is going to affect them. Right. If it's going to cause their host machine to actually surplus in cost, then they're going to protect the DDoS from that perspective. But if somebody's attacking your web app, that's money in their pocket, right? They're not worried as much about that. That's your job.
And the other big thing with cloud that a lot of people don't realize. So prior to me working a consulting gig, that was the last job I had where we started looking at Vagrant, Terraform. I forget what the other one is. Begins with an A, and I can't think of it. But basically, your infrastructure is code. So Vagrant is for your local VMs. It'll pull from Vagrant. You can install virtual machines and virtual networks on your desktop or whatever, or your servers, however you do it. But what the cloud gives us is immutable infrastructure. So instead of patching a server and hope it works or whatever, you can actually stand a new one up in code with a brand new image that already has the patches there. So
and roll off the old ones. Yeah.
So you can do the immutable infrastructure and tear down, stand up, tear down, stand up. So instead of patching and testing, you test and then shift because you're just pulling these new images over and over again versus an old image where even now we do it on laptops. You install an old image and wait 10 years for it to get all of its updates.
Right.
Because the last image you got is from last year, and you're like, all right, let's go, and then it takes 3 years for it to update. So we deal with that. But I think that's one of the benefits of cloud. Definitely is the immutable infrastructure as code, things like that. To just, hey, I got this box got pwned, rip it down, stand a brand new one up, and now It's brand new image,
And
brand new software, brand new everything. Nothing is on.
right. And to go along with that is, yeah, it's pretty much the same concept of auto scaling, right?
Mhm.
You can, same thing, you build an image and you say, okay, this is my web server. I want to make it as small as possible, but then if I get more traffic, I want it to build another one and another one and another one, and then destroy them as the traffic slows down. And it's auto magical. It's a beautiful thing. At least it looks auto magical, but
Yeah.
there is some configuration. But right, but
But it
it's that
controls cost
concept.
too. From a business
Exactly.
perspective, you're
Exactly.
controlling costs because now you're not putting into a data center, hey,
Right.
we know at peak times we're going to get this, but then it's going to die
Right.
off. But we need all
Yep.
that hardware there.
Yep.
And so you're running your electric bill, you're running the operating systems, the licenses, the EDRs, you're using
Right. You
all
got to
these
build
fees
it
and
up
everything
ahead of
else
time.
to
Yeah.
keep it running.
Yep.
Whereas when you think about the scaling that is done with AWS and Azure, you can set up your failovers, your HA, your everything to where it'll scale as
Right.
necessary and then pull back whenever it dies off.
Right. Yep.
Misha, I think the cloud is scary to many newer users because they don't understand what type of cloud they need to use. That's another one. So
Yeah.
much information
Yeah.
there.
Exactly. And that's why I do recommend. I mean, I recommend everybody play with the fundamental courses. Right, they're free from, I think, each of them, each AWS, Azure, GCP. I think they all have free training
Yeah.
for the fundamentals. Um, and of course, there's other stuff out there too. There's other training materials out there, and Try Hack Me and all of them are releasing stuff. But everyone should learn the basics, right? Because even if you're a system administrator, you're going to have to do both. Your company that you're going to is
They're going to be hybrid.
they may be on-prem now, but they're going to be hybrid and they're going to move to the cloud eventually. So you better learn
My
both.
problem with the cloud is this, and it's mainly Microsoft, not necessarily AWS or Amazon. They keep changing what everything is fucking called.
Yes. I agree with you on that one wholeheartedly.
Like,
Yeah.
can I just get Azure Monitor? No. Now it's Azure Security Monitor. And
Right.
hey, you don't need to use it on everything because if you have Defender now, you don't need to use Security Monitor because Defender will say, dude, just
Right.
keep.
Yeah.
And then it's not even Azure. It's not even Active Directory anymore. It's Azure AD.
Right now it's Entra ID or something.
Yeah. And
Which
so, like, all
it
these
made
things,
sense.
like,
Why'd you change
it's
it?
hard enough to learn the basics, and
Right.
every year you're changing the names for the
Right.
exact same shit. You're not adding any new functionality. It is doing the exact same thing. You were just like, marketing got a bug up their ass. We're just going to change some names for a little bit.
Right.
What?
Yeah, exactly. It's funny. People will complain about AWS and they're like, "Oh, the names don't make sense." Like, well, at least they don't really change them. Like the
This is true.
only big one they did change that was, I think, annoying for a lot of people was they changed AWS SSO over to Identity Center.
Yeah,
And
they did do that. I think they did that like 2 years ago, 3 years ago.
yeah, it was
That was
a
the
year or
biggest
two ago.
shift they
Yeah.
did. Yeah. See,
And
my problem with AWS is how they do accounts. Because an account, like a user account, isn't an account. It's like you have accounts for your different organizations. Your user account is like an identity or something. I don't know. Forget what it's called.
right.
But like they changed it. And I'm like, look, just give me my username and password, please. or how am I logging into this shit? That's all I care about.
Yeah, and it's interesting because they in some ways they're putting one foot too far ahead of the other because they're saying, oh, we want you to use organizations, which creates this hierarchy of accounts, and we're going to organize everything, but then you have to manage Identity Center and figure out which accounts people need access to and all this fun stuff. And then we get back to the security tools and it's like, okay, they released AWS network firewall, right? However, that only works on a per network basis. So if you have all these accounts, you have to deploy these firewalls everywhere. So now you're paying for 1 million firewalls instead of one firewall.
Yeah.
So it's stuff like that. It's like, okay, well, you want us to go to this organizations and all the, you want us to have all these accounts because You can separate permissions per account and all this cool stuff.
Which makes
And
sense.
yet,
Don't get me wrong.
it makes sense, right? It makes sense because you can put, if you have multiple companies or multiple products, you can put each one of them in a different AWS account. But then you have to do all this extra networking and all this extra work because they want you to do that, but their own product network firewall doesn't work that way. And
yeah,
I don't know if it's a money thing because they're like, oh, just deploy a firewall to every single account when you have 100 accounts. No, it's not.
that and you even security center. What the hell's their security? It's not a SIM, but it's a log aggregator that they have. I forget what it's called.
Security Hub.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's garbage, by the way. I absolutely despise it. There's a reason for it.
It's not good. It's okay.
The reason I despise it is because I don't give a damn if you put a host name on anything, what you put on anything. When you're looking through shit, it gives a stupid AWS ID. I do not memorize AWS IDs. I memorize host names and account names. So if I'm looking at something and I'm like, oh, what box is this? I got to drill down a million fucking times to find the fucking host name. No, so that should be the meta tag I'm shown. I should be shown the host name of that VM. Tell me what's wrong with it. Then I'll know exactly where to go. But then they charge you more because in order to enable that on the organizational structure, you have to, it's a fucking pain in the ass because you basically have to enable it as root, which has to have root org access to your entire org. And then you have to tell the org to point to root. It's not the easiest thing to do.
Now, if you use organizations and control tower, it is a little bit easier because you can centrally do that and centrally aggregate everything. So it is actually really nice if you use control tower and organizations and do all that together and you actually, deploy your accounts with a control tower. But even then, it does give you that more centralized visibility for Security Hub and Guard Duty, which is actually pretty cool. Native
Guard Duty is pretty solid.
Tool.
I'm not going to hate on Guard Duty.
It's
I will
the
say
GUI
thanks
that bothers
David
me.
Fraley. Thanks for the $5, brother. Thanks for the super chat. Appreciate it. But yeah,
their GUIs are horrible. That's definitely for sure.
I literally had to write Python scripts to rip out through API the data I needed to but then it's JSON file. So then I got to write a parser that'll parse the JSON file that'll then put it into a spreadsheet for me. And I'm like, we should have a good usable interface, and their interface is not good.
You really, when you start going that route, you really have to look at, your third-party vendors.
That's my take on it. You got to look at something like, I don't care, Logarithm, Sentinel. Because yes, Sentinel can take AWS logs. So for anybody out there that's wondering if they're a hybrid shop, Microsoft Sentinel will ingest your AWS logs from Guard Duty and everything else. It will do it. You just need to know how to set it up, and it's a bitch, but it's possible. So don't think it's not. McAfee ESM, if that's still around, I don't know. They were whatever.
I haven't seen that in a long time, but
long. Sumo Logic. All these SIM vendors out there can do such a better job than what AWS does. So if you're going,
they can do a great job.
That data, you need that third party vendor.
Yeah, so they can do a great job at consuming those logs. However, going back to that question earlier of actual cloud security, I don't feel like they give you everything, right? It goes back to a traditional SIM, right? It's like, okay, you can send all your logs there, but there's so much more that you can do that you can't do with a SIM. That if you look at these third-party tools that are being built just for cloud security, your Orca, your Wiz, your Prisma from Palo Alto, these guys are building full-on suites, full-on tools for cloud security, for specific cloud security that take all of those cloud logs from all your different sources, and they actually start correlating them and giving you intelligent alerts and more insight. That it would be a hell of a lot of work to do that on your own in your SIM, right? So they're doing a lot of that for you. Of course, you're talking about a few tens of thousands of dollars per year, but do you really
But it
want to
comes
hire
down to
20
what's
people
your
to
risk
do the same
appetite.
thing?
Do
Yeah.
you have a team that can actually go through and correlate the data that AWS is giving you in Security Hub? Or do you need the automation? Do you need the correlation? And again, even some of these SIM vendors that are going cloud centric, like I think Splunk,
Hmm.
Logic, there's a few others. You talked
Yeah.
about Palo and stuff like that. Even as a basic SIM, they were providing the functionality for correlation roles and event driven data. And that's one of the things that I think people forget, that a good MSSP, a good security engineer, can engineer almost any SIM to show you exactly what you want, can give you the alerts, the alarms, the correlation rules, the use cases, whatever you want to fucking call them, it can
Hmm.
give that to you. So when people talk about legacy SIM, I don't think SIM is dead. I don't think there
Hmm.
is better things out there. I think some companies have gone above and beyond and done more with machine learning and behavioral analytics and AI. Yes, hands down, there are companies out there that have gone above and beyond and instituted a lot of automation into their tool sets. But at its core, a SIM is a SIM. They provide the exact same thing and they can all correlate logs. That is why it is incident
Yeah.
security, incident, and event management, I believe. I don't know. I never remember what the
Right.
hell it stands
Yep.
for.
Yeah,
But
but think of it this way though, right? Is going from a SIM, and again, I worked incident response, I worked in a SOC, I did that fun stuff, trying to correlate all that,
mhm.
in Splunk and whatnot. So yes, you can
Splunk, I've
definitely
taken
do
my hands
that.
on. Splunk can go dive people down.
Yeah, if you got the money. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, so I've been there, right? Trying to build those rules, trying to build those
Mhm.
alerts. And even then, right, you still have to hire the engineers to build those alerts and build those
Correct.
rules, right? And that's the reason I say, I'm really leaning towards these other vendors that are doing all that for you, right? Because they've already got 10,000 alerts built for you
Yeah.
that are correlating all this information, and they're pretty damn good.
And
I'm actually
the biggest key
impressed.
factor of it, it can correlate all that data. The question comes down to are you providing the log sources in the data flow to
Oh yeah.
actually utilize it? And that is where I have found companies fall off, even in their cloud,
Hmm.
is hey, for this role to trigger, we need, your firewall alert, we need an EDR
Hmm.
alert, and we need a system, red change or whatever. Well, they're not
Yeah.
feeding EDR or they're not feeding their firewall. So that alert will never trigger. It's there.
Right.
It's just going to sit idle because it's not getting the entire sequence of logs it needs, because whoever put it in place didn't advise them or tell them that, hey, you should really be collecting all this. Or they were one of those
Right.
companies that thought, oh, we're going to save money and do it ourselves. And
Hmm.
we're like,
And then they
we
never
don't
do
need
it.
our router log, or we don't need
Right.
Active Directory logs, or, you know, they never can configure their EDR to go there because they're like, oh, we're just going to watch our EDR for alerts. Come on,
Yeah.
homie.
No.
Like,
No.
let's do this the right way.
Yeah, and I guess that's another good point to bring up, right? Is that is a big difference with cloud because everything is API driven, right? So
Yep.
in AWS, it's CloudTrail, right? If you're pulling CloudTrail, you're getting a whole lot of information that is just invaluable. I mean, you can't live without it
S3
if you're in
access,
AWS.
what username at what time accessed S3, or what service, what database, whatever, it's
Right.
all there. Every little bit, as long
It's
as you turn it
it's
on.
mostly there.
As
Right. It's
long as you
mostly
turn
there.
it on.
Yeah. So that was what I was going to get to next. It's mostly there, right? There are some additional things you have to turn on. Same thing with guard duty, right? You can turn on guard duty, but it's not doing its full job unless you're turning on VPC flow logs.
Yep.
Things like there are additional logging that you still need to turn on, right? So it does a great job. It gives you more than you get in the past with very minimal things that you have to turn on.
Yeah.
So, CloudTrail does give you a ton of information, still not everything, but that's where, like I said, guard duty is great. You get DNS logs by default, right?
Mhm.
It's looking, because you're using AWS DNS servers, you're automatically, they're automatically looking at DNS for you. They're
Yeah.
automatically correlating their threat intel for you. So when you get those alerts, yeah, they're pretty good, right? They're, if somebody's SSH brute forcing your server, those alerts are pretty damn accurate, right?
Yeah.
So
And that's the thing is, but so I equate a lot of the security tools today. Now they're better, but one of the very first EDR vendors out there was Cylance,
Hmm.
and people were like, "Cylance is garbage." Like they didn't install it and be like, "Oh, this is garbage. This ain't doing nothing for me." No, it's not, jackass, because you didn't enable any of the policies. You didn't disable
Right.
any scripting. You literally installed it like it was an antivirus and just left it go. And we're like, "Oh, okay, it's gonna work now."
Yeah.
No, it does not
It's
work
auto
that way.
magical, man. It's auto
Right?
magical.
So like I looked at it because I worked for a company that used Cylance for a time. They were using it when I left. I don't know if they still are. I don't even know if it's still around. I have not heard hide nor hair of it in years. But
Hmm.
it was one of the very first, like, you can lock down scripting. There were profiles. There were different ways to deploy it. There was all this stuff that went into it, and people were legitimately installing it like an AV and then getting mad when it didn't stop a breach. Well, homie,
Right.
you didn't enable anything. Like, your
Yeah.
default profile is,
If your
hey,
profile is monitor only, yeah, it's not going
I'm
to do anything.
here, and I'm just gonna watch the system and not do anything.
Yeah, just
Like,
leave it in monitor mode. It'll be all right. Yeah.
yeah, no alerts, no
Yeah.
blocking, no nothing. We're just gonna install it like an AV and hope it catches things. Like, no,
Yeah.
so I see that problem now, and and like you said, and I said, security tools are getting better. They are
Hmm.
enabling things by default, but we're still running into this problem where people are thinking that's all they need without
Hmm.
actually going through and checking everything. So when they get owned, they're blaming the software or their MDR or their MSSP, when none of those companies were allowed to touch it, because
Right.
this particular enterprise is like, "Oh, I'll have someone do it, or I'll do it myself," and they never actually check the policies or anything like that, and then they
Right.
just want to blame somebody.
Yep.
So I think that is right now where we are running into an issue, is they're expecting it to work right out of the box, and I don't know any system that is fully secure, or fully protecting you right out of the box. There's always
Right.
things you need to configure in TLC.
Yeah, exactly. There's definitely a balance, right? Of, AWS, for example, is trying to create a balance of making it usable and functional, and still trying to provide security. So, they can't win, right? You can't have it both ways. You can't have
Sure.
everything locked down and yet have developers be able to quickly deploy and easily, use it like they want. So it is a balancing act, but yeah,
And
and
it's all
it's
about business
complex.
enablement.
Yeah.
If AWS or Azure, right, or GCP were to go out there and say, by default, everything is locked down. You can't access any ports. You can't do anything. You have to go into the GUI. You have to be able to do this, or in your infrastructure as code upon deployment, you have to have all these settings in there.
Hmm.
If you were to turn something on and then someone was like, "Oh, okay, it's up now. Let me go SSH in," and everything was shut off,
Right.
people would lose their shit. They'd lose
Yep.
their mind. Like, I can't access it. No, you got to log in first to the GUI, and you have to set all your security rules.
Yep.
So it'll take more time. I think that's where infrastructure as code comes into play, and I think it would force more people to use IAC, or pay attention to when they're doing the GUI stand-ups, to actually go through to security and look at what is being locked down.
Yeah. And that could be a catch-22 too, though, because if you're using the command line and you're doing IAC, you may not get the alerts that you would get from the console, right? So unless you're using something like CDK NAG, or one of these developer tools that tells you, hey, that's not the best way to do that, uh, they could be more likely to deploy something insecure than if they were to use the GUI, because now finally AWS and others are saying, hey, just like the S3 bucket issue, right? They
Mm.
finally are putting giant red, blocks saying, you're going to make this public. Are you really sure you want to do that? Like,
Look, I need you to hit the yes button and okay
five
at least
times,
three
right?
times. Yes, 4 more times you got to hit that okay.
Right.
Once you do
Yep.
that, it's out of our hands. You can't blame
It's
us.
on you. Yeah. And they finally pushed, block policies at the account level and all this stuff. And it's like, okay, finally. And, and then finally, having that capability, along with, okay, if you really do want to make, a static image available from your S3 bucket, there is now the ability to share it through CloudFront and still keep your bucket private. Like there
Yeah.
are options finally. So it's complex. That's the other issue. It is complex, and you got to learn. You got to learn it.
It is, but that's why you start out at the basics, and again, you talked about it in the beginning. We start out at the fundamentals, the foundations of cloud, and you go through. Now, if you want to get into the consulting space, or if you want to open yourself up to any job, AWS, Azure, and I hate to say it, but I have seen companies that use it, GCP. So Google, Microsoft, Amazon, go through their basic fundamental trainings. They're free.
Yeah.
Go online, find
Yep.
their fundamental training, go through to learn their cloud from a very basic stance. Then work your way up. Some of the certifications are extremely inexpensive. You can go through.
Right.
You can train yourself via books from a library, Barnes and Noble, whatever. Google
Humble
offers
Bundle,
courses, Coursera, LinkedIn Learning. There's a ton of courses out there that you can actually learn it. Another one is Cloud Guru.
Cloud Guru.
They're pretty inexpensive also. So they are, when you're getting into the more advanced stuff, they're a good place to go because they'll help you. You can stand up free labs through there and do everything and get hands-on learning. So, there's ways to go about doing it. But I would start at the fundamentals and work your way up because that's going to set you apart. The fact that you know it, fundamentals for all, find one that you want to master first. And I ain't even going to say master. Find one you want to become professional at first.
Right.
Because to master it is a moot point. There's way too much shit in all of them. Find one that you want to become a professional in and specialize in. And then once you get to a level you're happy with, then you can learn the others and kind of work your way up. I would say Azure and AWS should be your priority, with GCP kind of being on the side. Granted, if you get GCP certified, companies may pay buku bucks because not a lot of people know Google Cloud. Just saying. So you might be able to write your own ticket and like pay me, $7 million a year. Who knows? Space Tacos, thanks for the $5. Yes, fundamentals is key. Always do the free stuff first. Always. Free. There's so many free trainings out there. And what I want to do before, actually, I'll probably do it after we end the show. Me and Matt, we'll get together probably this weekend, or I'll just have you send me a message. Any free trainings and stuff that I'll throw it in the YouTube description after the fact so that people can go in, look at the description, and find the links all in there.
Absolutely.
I do have another question here from Misha, and Misha is awesome. I love when she's here.
Yeah, thank you.
How often do you think a company, small or big, doesn't realize their cloud is out of compliance? As in they don't have the right exceptions and plans in place, etc. Compliance does not equal security, but compliance is huge.
Exactly. You got to make that point. Yeah. I would say most of the time, unless they are heavily investing into auditing and into the right tools that can help them find those issues, it's rarely are they actually aware of all the issues. You'd be surprised how many times I've seen you turn on, or you set up, you turn on one of these tools that looks at all your configurations, and all of a sudden, like, there's just lights going crazy, right? All the dashboards are lighting up, right? You find out you have 1,000 critical vulnerabilities that you didn't realize you had. I mean, if you're not, it's just a classic issue. If you're not monitoring it, if you're not scanning it, then you're not going to find it, right? I mean, it's just like anything else, right? If you've done Windows hardening or anything else, right? Have you done CIS hardening? It is, I forget. It's like 1,000.
That's the equivalent. Actually, I think Stigs might be worse. But yeah.
But either way, right? It's step by step, right? Yeah, I agree. But I'm just saying, right? Like, that's what these tools are helping you to do, right? It's just a million steps that you have to go through.
Security Hub helps
to
you
check
do that.
this.
I will give AWS credit there. Security Hub, they have, if you enable it, it will actually check for CIS benchmarks, AWS fundamental
AWS best practices,
and I think PCI.
They do NIST and PCI.
Yeah. So it'll do those checks for you. And it's on you to go in and look, because when Security Hub says you have failures, and this is where I give them credit, you can go through, see where you're failing in compliance. But again, please do not ever equate compliance to security. Compliance is the bare minimum you can ever do. And it just says, hey, do you have a firewall? Not, is that firewall functional?
Right.
Just say.
Exactly. Yeah. You know, they'll have some security checks of like, oh, you know, your root user still doesn't have an MFA enabled. Okay, well, that's definitely a problem, but that's pretty much where it stops. It does not, or it tells you, you know, this is exposed to the internet, right? You've got this exposed to 0000, but that's pretty much where they stop, right? That's where I say, you know, it really does take. There are some open source tools that can help. You know, you can build tools yourself. I've done that myself, but you know, it really was a game changer when I started looking at the really nice tools that, you know, like I said, it's 40,000
third-party tools out there for the cloud. Really slick.
Yeah, but I mean, compare that to you know, a person's salary, right? You know, that's. Would you rather buy a tool for 40,000 a year, or would you rather pay multiple people that cost, you know, twice?
I think it all depends.
3-4 times that.
I think it all depends, because if you don't have, you're going to end up in one of two realms, right? If you're really trying to, if you have to abide by certain regulations, if you're trying to get in compliance, if you're trying to be secure, you're going to need 3 teams, well, at least 2 teams. I really am not a fan of an in-house red team, solely because they should know your network, so it should be really easy for them to be quiet and bypass everything. Whereas an external red team is more, how do I say? They're more black box. So they only know what you tell them. But you should have a GRC and a blue team for sure. Your red team that you hire, whether they're in-house or out-of-house, should work with that blue team and become more of the purple teaming things. But yeah, I think you need that if you don't have a GRC team, you'll never be within compliance. If you have, unless you're hiring a third-party GRC team. Last company I worked for, actually both companies, the company I work for now and the one I worked for before, we have GRC people that's their job. They consult with organizations, they help them develop risk management and policies, procedures, and get in compliance with whatever regulations they have. They do risk registers, things of that nature. You know, that stuff is there if you don't want to pay for a team. But either way, if you have compliance standards, you're spending money. You have to either hire someone that will keep you in compliance and tell you when you're fucking up, or you need to pay an organization, a consulting company like Stratascale, like CISO, something like that, to be able to say, okay, can you please do my GRC for me?
Right. Right. But I'm trying to compare, right? Like, you know, do you hire, yes, you build a GRC person or team, you build a security person or team, but you could have specialists, right, on your security team for different areas, but not have to have an entire team focused on cloud security or an entire team focused on something, when a tool can help with those alerts and those automations.
I don't deny
that's what I mean.
Bit.
Yeah.
There's tools out there that will save you money, but you also need the person that can work that tool.
Exactly.
You're still paying at least 2 people.
Right.
You need a primary and a backup.
That's better than 5 or 10 people.
Yeah. So they still got to take that in. But ESC, Escape Ho, I don't know, whatever we want to call you. Esho. What are good starts for cloud security?
Good question. So obviously, if you, so I'll back up. So first, I would start with, like we said before, either the fundamental certs or look at, you know, the completely vendor agnostic ones too. You know, your CompTIA Cloud Plus is a good one. Your Cloud Security Alliance, CCSK, is a good one as well. So those are vendor agnostic, but you, like we were saying earlier, you should specialize. So, you know, whether you want to go up Microsoft Azure or you want to go up the AWS path, you know, pick one of those and go through those certifications, right? So AWS, for example, you can start out with their fundamentals. Then they have a solutions architect associate, which is a good just overall certification, right? It really covers a wide breadth of AWS. Um, they have a security specialty, they have a network specialty, depending on what you want to do. But those are some examples of uh, what I like in cloud security certs.
Yeah, definitely. I think anything CompTIA, from a very basic. Now they're expensive. They're not as cheap as they used to be. I think they're like $300 now, $400.
Yeah, I
So
think they're
in terms of
300.
basic
Yes.
certification attempts, they're
Yeah.
they're relatively expensive for someone just trying to break into the field, especially if you're coming out of college or you're looking at your first, this is your first career. You may not have the money. So yeah, I get that. That's where the free trainings and things like that come into play.
Hmm.
Always, always, always look at free trainings. Look, YouTube, the University of YouTube, YouTube University, the school of YouTube, whatever you want to call it, is going to be a lifesaver. There are so many videos out there. KevTech IT Support does some really good videos on system administration and support stuff that includes cloud and lab setup. So, things like that. Looking at um, Keep It Techie and uh, InfoSec Pat and so many of these other people that are doing videos that'll give you the basics and fundamentals
Yeah.
of different areas. And there's so many others. Um, and then you just go and you grow from that. Once you get your foot in the door somewhere, it's easier to get certifications. If you're
Right. You
trying to
get
get them out
reimbursed
the
for
gate,
them.
getting them in school is the best way. Something like a WGU will give you the best certs.
Yep.
Uh, but I stand by the fact Security Plus, don't ever knock it. The Sec
No.
Plus is one of the least expensive basic security certs you can ever get, and it'll
Yeah.
give you the fundamentals of security. Then you move on to, like Matt said, your cloud security, your Cloud Plus, or whatever it is from CompTIA, and
Yep.
a few of the others, and then you go to your specialization routes: AWS, Azure, GCP. Um, the certs themselves, relatively inexpensive. They're only like a few $100s, I think.
Yeah, they're the same. Yeah.
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 But they require more
The other
knowledge.
thing I'll say is, if you do take these courses right from A Cloud Guru and some of the other like LinkedIn Learning, the good thing about those is you get certificates of completion. So even if you don't go get the cert, you can still get a certificate of completion when you finish the course, and you can post that to LinkedIn and at least show that you went through all that
Yep.
many hours of training, right? So that's a good thing too.
And depending on how quick you learn, Coursera is a great way. I think it's like $50 a month, and you can go there and do the entire Google cybersecurity course for as quick as you can
Yeah.
get through, for as quick as you can. So you can go through the entire course in 2 months, and it would cost you $100. You can get through
Right.
it in a month; it'll cost you $50. You can get through it in 3 months. Whatever the case may be, you can do things like that. So always learn in public. So post all. For anybody that will ever tell you not to post your achievements on LinkedIn or Twitter or Facebook or whatever, I am a hiring manager. I am a practice manager. I hire people. And if you have literally put nothing you've done and you're just trying to break into the field and you've not put anything on LinkedIn, nothing on Twitter, if I don't know your name, there's a good chance that when I Google you, if I can't find you, I'm sorry, your resume is only going to do so much. And I'm gonna bet you're not gonna put your lab experience on there. Like I'm almost gonna guarantee your resume isn't gonna say, because most new people don't do this, hey, I built an entire cloud, Azure lab that had Sentinel
Right.
and Defender deployed and all this other stuff. So when I'm looking for a Defender person and you've not put any of that learning in public on there, I'm not gonna hire you. Why am I gonna talk to you? Because you've not put anything on there that I need to hire for. And
Right.
that's where LinkedIn and learning in public comes in handy. You put on there your Google cybersecurity certifications that you're going for, or a course that you're
Yep.
going through. You put on your Azure. I don't give a damn what anybody tells you. The more you publicize your learning on LinkedIn, the more you tag people like myself, Matt, Mike Miller, Natalie Baker. Go through 160 some episodes or whatever the fucking number I'm on now of people that have been on this show and tag them on LinkedIn, and that message will get out there. KevTech does it every Saturday. He has a social Saturday where he tags everybody. My LinkedIn blows up every Saturday, and literally, I get connections strictly from him tagging me.
Yeah.
And as long as I see you're learning in public and you tag me, guess what? I'm gonna start remembering that. And so now when
Hmm.
I go and say, hey, I need a Windows Defender person, they need to be a junior, right? I'm not looking for a mid-level. I have my mid, I have my senior, I need a junior. I'm like, all right, who's done certifications?
Yep.
Who's played with it in the lab? Who's worked on it? Those things matter. So when you talk about good for cloud security, we talked about the certs. I'm just going to go out there and tell you, I I don't even care if you pass the cert. I care that you learn something.
Right.
Learning is what matters because not a lot of people are good test takers.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Yeah,
Uh,
it's showing experience without actually having experience.
yeah, learn in public or else the cyber warrior will stalk your nightmares. Damn straight I will. I'm coming for you. Google Cybersecurity course also gives you a 30% discount to take the Security Plus.
There you
I
go.
did not know that. Space Tacos, please get a hold of Amanda or tag Amanda in the Discord and let her know because she took that. I don't know if she's gone for a Sec Plus or not yet, but she did pass the cybersecurity course. So please let her know. And I've got someone else taking the course that you know, Matt. They're in our Discords.
Okay.
So
Okay. Nice.
we're gonna. I'm fighting to get her on here. It'll happen eventually. I
Nice.
pulled so many people from our other Discords into ours.
Nice.
Let's see. Oh, Jack even said Sec Plus is cheaper than A Plus. Well, true, because A Plus you got to take
A plus is two
two
parts now.
certifications
Yeah.
now.
Yep. I had to do that. Yeah.
Yep. Hey, me too, Space Tacos. For the Security Plus discount, just let her know that she can get it for 30% off. I've been drinking since like 3:00. It's okay. I'm a German leprechaun. I can handle it. But no. So the cloud, it bothers me because I think we are at a point in time where people are still trying to stay hybrid, which is a bitch with Microsoft.
Yeah.
Because instead of going to Intune, they want to use on-prem SCCM. Which,
Oh,
let's
okay.
be honest, on-prem SCCM is the biggest bitch of them all. It is one of the worst patch management and worst software distribution pieces of shit out there. Like I said it
Have you
last
used
week, and I'll
BigFix?
say it this week. Tanium by far is one of the best like patch management, software management programs out there, especially when it comes to like licensing. And again, I'm not sponsored. This is just me talking. I refuse to promote a lot of things, just because I go by what I see, and I don't know. I gotta trust you enough to like really push it. I've seen what Tanium can do, and I love their product. I haven't even used, like I wish I could use it on my home network, but I'm never going to get
Right.
that license.
Yeah.
I
No.
really wish I had that granularity of control over what my kids use and be like,
Right.
you ain't logged into this in like a year and taking it off you. Like it can
Right.
save you money. So, from so many perspectives. So that's why like, where do
Yeah.
you think that
Tanium was great from
hybrid?
an IR perspective too. The
Oh,
modules
dude,
that they had, it was amazing.
everything. They
Yeah.
are literally, and they're moving into the VM space. Like they are literally going to take over vuln management, guaranteed.
Okay.
Their platform by far is just amazing. I can't say enough good things about it. I wish they would pay me for it, but it is what it is. I can't say enough good things about it. And hey, just so y'all are aware, we manage the company I work for. We manage Tanium instances, so give us a call. But yeah, no, I'm looking at it from a cloud security perspective. What do you feel is the biggest hardship right now for companies that are hybrid? I think it's trying to either use SCCM or Intune, like not having a good patch management, third party, like software distribution type of setup. Like, because you figure patching is difficult. SCCM or Intune will only do Microsoft based installs. So it'll patch your OS. And if you deployed through Intune and or SCCM, actually, I think only Intune, will it update that software? If you did not deploy it from there, it will not see it. It will not update it. It will not touch it. Unless you tell it, hey, here's a Google Chrome brand new download MSI. Please install this.
Mm-hmm.
Like, but how does that affect the update? So
Yeah.
Where do you think that the hardest part right now? And I'm gonna let you take over the show. So I want you to do two things because I'm gonna come back. I got two questions that I want you to answer.
All right.
One, the biggest hardship that companies are going to face and new people breaking in are going to face when they're dealing with these hybrid environments,
Hmm.
and the best advice you can give for any newcomers. And when I come back, we'll talk about some more stuff.
All right. All right. So yeah, some of the biggest hardships is you really have a lot of companies that jumped into the cloud, tried to become hybrid. Unfortunately, they're still stuck in the on-prem mode, as I call it. So, you have people that know traditional networks, they know, traditional data centers. They don't understand the cloud. They don't know the cloud. Um, and that creates a lot of problems. Like I said earlier, if you don't understand it, you don't learn it. It's complex. It's different enough that it makes it very hard. And if you again aren't deploying the extra tools, the extra um, monitoring capabilities that you don't know about, if you aren't aware of it, well, you're going to put yourself in a real deep hole, and you're going to end up with stuff being deployed that you don't know about. Depending on who you have given access to deploy things. Obviously, there's a lot of issues with the cloud and with people spinning up their own accounts, right? Because they couldn't wait for IT or whoever to create an account for them. Shadow IT type stuff. Um, so that's the biggest issue that I see with a lot of hybrid networks. They don't know how to connect them together. They don't know how to make them work together. And a lot of them, although 2020 forced a lot of people to start moving to the cloud, start wanting to transition to the cloud, it was a hurry up and do it. And then now you know, you still have people that unfortunately don't understand it because they didn't have time to learn it, or whatever the case may be, right? Um, and yeah, second question for newcomers. I think we've already covered this quite a bit, but yeah, I'm very hands on. So I guess it depends on how you learn, but I'm very hands on. So I have to agree with what we've said before of just getting in there, doing it, building stuff, trial and error. If you need some walkthrough type things, try Hack Me does have some cloud stuff, but get your hands dirty. For me, I'm a hands-on learner. Get your hands dirty, build stuff, destroy it, do it over again. Like we said, KevTech's videos, follow along and do it yourself, right? You're going to get so much more out of it by just trying it. And as I said, you can get a year free, and yeah, it's going to be the smallest instance possible, but who cares? You're not building it for production. You're building it for testing. So take advantage of those resources, right? Use Azure, use AWS, play around with it, find labs and whatnot to build and play with, because that's the best way that I learned. And I feel like a lot of people get more out of it by doing it hands-on as opposed to reading a book or watching a video. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I can't disagree. Like hands on is the best way for me. Give me a second for individuals. Da, da, da. I'm actually looking at a Cloud Guru so right now, and this is
Yeah, and they
they're an
used to
amazing site.
rotate
They
some
partnered
monthly
with
stuff.
Pluralsight.
They were
Um,
kind of bought by them, but yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
Personal Plus is $47 a month, and you can do
Okay.
unlimited AWS, Azure, and GCP sandboxes.
Yeah.
So for less than $50 a month, you can go through and do training for Azure, AWS, and Google Cloud. I think that is one of the best ways to do it because, to your point, it's hands on, and it gives you those directions of how to stand up the lab. What are you doing? And
Right.
sometimes with certain ones, they'll even let you stand up a demo environment and play around in it all you want.
Exactly.
Yeah, Misha, I'm going to come back and throw some of these in there. Me and Matt will discuss it in Discord. this weekend or early next week. I'll put all the websites in there. But let me throw it in chat
Yep.
real quick.
Yeah, I'll pull a lot of links. Don't worry. I've gotten into the habit of sharing stuff, but I never actually compile it into a list. So yeah, I'll definitely have to go through and come up with a list. But also there are some other people that have compiled some really nice lists of things. You know, there's the awesome this, awesome that list that, you know, have some really good stuff. But yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and so I think that for new people, it's using the free tiers, it's doing different things, and once you understand, if you only want to go the cybersecurity route, I wouldn't worry too incredibly much about infrastructure as code unless you want to get into that side of it. If that wants to be a focus of yours is Terraform or something like that, because you don't necessarily need it.
It depends. Yeah.
It's one of those things. Like some companies will require it, others won't. So if you don't know Terraform, you don't apply for a job that requires Terraform. Maybe they just want you to know how to use Sentinel or how to stand up, Security Hub or something along those lines. So really delve into what you want to do. And we say this every episode. You got to find what you love and find what you're going to get into. When it comes to the cloud, learn the fundamentals and then find something that you want to focus on. The one thing I will say, and I think this is probably one of the only semi-serious comments Anonymous put up, and I really wish I could remember who the hell he is, because I know we figured it out like last year. I'd have to go back and watch the episodes. Biggest problem for hybrid companies, they can't afford an E5 license. Everything would be fully deployed there. And not wrong. If the E5 license for Microsoft Azure is gives you everything. And so he's not wrong. And I think if Azure and AWS are going to be the biggest ones, I think Azure is going to take over personally. But pick one of those two and run with it and learn everything you can about it. And then whenever jobs come out and they're looking for cloud security, just say, hey, I know AWS, I know Security Hub, I know Guard Duty, I know da-da-da-da, and go with it.
Yep.
But it's on you to figure out exactly what you want to do. And Jack, with the very last fact, the faster you break stuff and learn how to fix it, the better you will understand how to make it do things it wasn't designed to do.
That's a good one. Yeah.
I mean, let's be honest. The reason I learned the reason I got into computers was because I broke my dad's computer.
Right.
So, at like 8, 9 years old, when you crash a hard drive, you're like, not a good idea. So,
yep.
But yeah. So, anyways, look, I love you all, Matt. Thank you for joining me once again. It has been amazing. And we will get you back on. I don't know. Maybe once a year we'll just bring you on and we'll talk cloud.
Whatever. I'm around. Whatever. Whenever.
Right? Otherwise, look, y'all have a fantastic weekend. This is the start of December. So if you celebrate Yule, celebrate Yule. You celebrate Hanukkah, Christmas, happy holidays. Enjoy your month. And seriously, the entire month is filled with holidays. So you might as well celebrate the entire fucking month. Have a beer. Yep. Have a shot of whiskey. Have a White Claw, even though I think that is what has really destroyed our country and world. White Claw, what is going to be the death of us. But y'all have an amazing time. I will catch you all next time with another amazing episode of Security Happy Hour.